Vince. That's perfect.
How are you?
Hey. We good? Good evening. Welcome everybody to the February 23rd Carroll County School Board work session. We'll start out by reviewing the meeting agenda for next Tuesday. Stephanie, you'll have the invocation. We'll approve the minutes. We'll approve the agenda. Go over the committee reports, superintendent recognitions. I think we'll have some next week.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Any visitors and requests? First off tonight, Dr. Green.
Yes, so communications report is there for your review. I want to call your attention to one of our most popular Facebook posts. Our top performing Facebook post this past month was a tribute to our teachers, where we invited parents to and students, former students, to share stories of appreciation for their teachers under the theme, "The best teacher I ever had was." And so Suzanne is scrolling through 10 pages worth of responses, thousands of responses of folks that responded to that Facebook post and sang the praises of our teachers. And so this was quite a popular post, and I just wanted to kind of call your attention to that. We're not going to take time to read them, but I hope you'll click on it and take a look at the things that folks had to say about our wonderful teachers. We're certainly very proud of them.
Dr. Green, whose idea was that?
I'm sure it was Shinley Roundtree's idea.
He might want to look at giving her a raise. That was absolutely remarkable. I read through those and saw so many names from years ago and current names, and it was really inspiring to read. Good job to everybody that are part of that.
Anything else, Dr. Green? You good?
That's it for tonight.
Okay. Ms. Houston.
Good evening. All right, so we have our normal invoices between $10,000 and $24,999. We had two of them this month. One to Georgia DOE Accounting Services is from the general fund for $23,610. It's for Georgia virtual classes. That was for 44 classes, and they were all at Wandabera High School, or Wandabera High School students. The next one is Cengage Learning. It was paid out of the general fund for $15,659. That was for AP Geography books, 81 of them at BASA. Y'all had approved the textbook on 12/1, but we didn't say how many textbooks we were going to purchase. So we purchased 81 for $15,659. Any questions on that? Okay, our next one is the IT Technologies Board $200,000 that you gave IT. This is a reconciliation of how much he has spent so far. And it was for 214 Chromebooks at Statham, Bethlehem, Yargo, and Wholesome Beck. They all use their title funds, or it's called consolidated funds now, for $67,895. So he has $132,000 left. And that's it. Thank you.
Ms. Houston, could I ask a question? Do we have, I understand that there is still some money that the state's going to provide to us for the pandemic, or that
The CARES
is
Act?
supposed to be coming to us.
Mm-hmm.
Have you gotten any numbers yet on how much that's going to be?
Sure. It's 8 million. I think it's 8 million too.
Okay.
And we have not tapped that yet. The state is going to reduce our QBE funds again this year by 4%. So we know we're going to use a portion of that to help our general fund out, but that should only be about 3 million, 4 million. So we have some left to make some decisions on.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice. Mr. Burnell.
Good evening. our board report tonight. Got an update on our West Side Middle Edition. Still moving along very well there. I was there this afternoon and they're cleaning the brick and they've got the windows in place. First coat of paint on the interior of the building and ceiling grid and lights in almost all the classrooms at this point. So they're continuing to make great progress out there. The session and press box building there at the ball field up front. It's underway. So that's all we've got this evening, unless you all have any questions.
On time and under budget?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Very good. Dr. Moulton?
Good evening. I actually have two quick reports to share with you. We recently updated our language in our board policy regarding dual enrollment. The previous language was move on when ready, so we updated that. And on the screen, you see a copy of state board rule regarding diploma options A and B. So I just wanted to have a quick conversation regarding the difference between those two and where we are as a district. So that document is attached there for your reference. And let's talk a little bit on the next attachment about specifically what's in that state board rule and what applies to options A and B. So we've had students enrolled in dual enrollment option A, where students can take college level courses while they're in high school and get credit towards graduation. So the Charter Foundation now is encouraging districts to look closer at option B. And what happens if you scroll down, you can see there in green and blue. What happens with option B is students have an opportunity to earn technical certificates. They can also earn an associate's degree, and it puts them on a quicker track to graduation. This is going to reduce dropout rates for some of our students. For example, we recently discovered a student in Appalachia who thought that he could not graduate and had made a decision that he was not going to continue with his matriculation. However, the leaders at Appalachia looked closer at his transcript, and he had completed the technical certificates. He had completed the welding program. He had completed the 8 courses that he needed in high school. He had completed health and PE. And so instead of this young man going on thinking that he had not successfully completed high school, we discovered that he was eligible for a high school diploma under option B. So we will be looking for additional students. We want parents to know that diploma B is an option for students. We know that through option A, a lot of students choose to do that and earn that dual credit because they already know a career path that they want to take, and they may be looking at entering the college setting. But for some students who are ready to enter the workforce, and they can earn a certificate and they can enroll at Lanier Tech or one of the other partnering institutions, diploma option B may be a viable option for them if they're ready to enter the workforce. So think about the two groups of students, option A and option B, and our overall goal is listed in our charter is to increase graduation rate and make sure every student who graduates from, well, we want to get them to graduation, and then we want to make sure that they have made a good choice about what they're ready to do after they finish Barrow County schools. So just wanted to give you that overview. And the next attachment goes into a little bit more specific detail. And this is a document that has since been updated. It was recently updated in January, but at the top, it shows you that there are 8 academic courses, and you can see those listed on the left that students would have to complete. And actually, we found that some students who choose to do this actually finish early. So this helps us with early graduation for some of those students who are really ready to move on. On the right-hand side, you see that students can also complete, as I said, the associate's degree. They can also complete a diploma program, and then they can earn 2 technical certificates as they matriculate through high school. So it really does have advantages for students and for our overall graduation rate and getting those students ready. So we want parents to be aware and wanted you to be aware as you hear additional discussion about the charter system's push to get more students enrolled in dual option B, dual enrollment option B. Any questions about that one?
How important is it going to be for our counselors to help our students understand the options that they have? It sounds like this high school student at Appalachia almost fell through the cracks. And I think making students aware of the options that they have is vitally important. Is it, I know it's parents, I know some of the responsibility falls on parents and teachers, but also that our staff understands to look for these students. Is it going to take more training for our staff, or what's that going to look like, or do we know yet?
There was a recent training from the Charter Foundation and counselors were included in that. So I think that increased awareness is what specifically helped us in this instance with this student. So the counselors are getting additional training. Administrators have received training from the Charter Foundation as well. So knowing what to look for now, and counselors already have those important relationships with students, and just being able to route them in the right direction. So I think the training was extremely helpful.
Dr. Moten, we've had dual enrollment for several years. Do you have, and if you don't know the answer to this, that's fine. Just, I'd like to know later. Do you know what percentage of our students are actually participating in dual enrollment?
By number, we have a little over 100 students each year that are participating in dual enrollment. There's a difference between the number of students who participate and actually are successful at that. But at each high school, on average, every year we're seeing a little over 100 students and a little over 200 courses that are attempted.
Okay, so 100 per
Pretty
school
much. It's very close to 100.
Okay. The other question I have, which has to do with budgeting again, is we know there is a shortage of, if you just do the numbers, number of students divided by number of counselors who are having to deal with these students every day and help them with this. There's obviously an issue. And I have heard through both the federal guidelines for COVID monies and that the state is looking at money to possibly increase the number of counselors that we have. Have we gotten anything definitive on that yet?
We have not received anything definitive, but we are using district funds and our resources to try to increase opportunities to have additional staff available to help the counselors. So we're looking at least possibly one more position that can support both high schools.
Okay.
And also, just as a reminder, maybe 3 years ago, you all granted each high school an extra counselor also.
Is there?
But we've grown since then, so
That's true.
it's playing catch up.
You guys are doing such a great job. I know this is amazing. I'm so impressed. I was thinking about all the work over the years as I have, when I graduated from Winder High School in 2000. So now you go 21 years later, and I've seen the work Lisa did, which was so wonderful through linear tech and building that and just creating that here for us, and then seeing this. But even as now, I'm just so impressed. And the mother of now a child who's going into high school, Lynn's right. There's not a lot of counselors. I mean, there's one to every lots of kids, but they've started, using segments of class of advisement, and these teachers are now helping to step in and answer a lot of these questions and use this guidance. And, I know at crew leaders at BASA, they do a lot of the planning and just so many things going into investing in these kids and making sure, like Ricky said, that they don't fall through the cracks. And, it just takes a village. And I'm just so impressed. I just wanted you to know I'm just thoroughly impressed. I really am.
Definitely hats off to our teachers and to our principals and counselors, because they are working day to day and working extremely hard, as I said, not only to get students to graduation, but to make sure that they have options for success after that.
Absolutely. Thank y'all so much.
Dr. Moten, I was I wanted to know, do they get high school credit for dual enrollment classes? Okay.
Dr. Moten, there was something that was brought up in the breakout group of the 5-year strategic plan that I was. There was a parent that was in there that had brought up that one of the concerns that she had seen as a parent was that they didn't have this information readily of students knowing what or their parents not knowing how to help their students. Is there a way we can get this information out to the parents in advance so that they can have maybe a little booklet put together that they'll know in advance of, okay, our students is, this is what we need to do, or this is what we need to look, so that they can help their own students be on the right path.
Right.
And know that that's an option, because obviously we are short on counselors and teachers can only do so much, but that would help the parent to help their own students be on that path or know what the options are.
And Sherry Perry, our dual enrollment coordinator, does a phenomenal job of trying to disseminate information. I'll share that with her so that we can look at additional ways to reach some parents who we may not have been able to contact, but or some who may not have clicked on the website, some who may not have attended those informational meetings that are made available through the high schools. So we can certainly look at additional ways to try to make sure that all parents have this information.
Okay.
I'm a few years out of being in touch and directly involved with dual enrollment, but I know several years ago, and I doubt it has changed much, but the career planning booklets that every student has with their counselors, it's very clear
It is.
there if you're paying attention that those opportunities are right there for our students.
And using some of our communication tools, maybe some additional phone calls and some things like that. Some documents don't always make it home.
Right.
So using all of our resources to make sure that as much as possible, every parent has this
I
information.
think there's still this thought that taking dual enrollment classes are in addition to your high school day, and that's maybe too much
There
for
is.
my child. But parents should understand that that's instead, you're getting dual credit, one class.
And there's
two
still a little
credits.
Exactly.
conflict too with, conflict might not be the best word, but between the AP courses and the dual
Right.
enrollment, and we've always kind of had to work through some of that. Do we take, some colleges want the AP courses and don't want dual enrollment, so it really does depend a lot on that planning, starting that planning early, 8th, 9th grade, or maybe even before, to make sure we keep them on that track. So there's a lot of coordination that goes on there.
And it really is helpful for children to have so many options. Some can graduate early, some can graduate work ready, some already have a good grasp on their college majors. So it's advantageous.
Absolutely.
I'd like to go back to your earlier example of the young person in Appalachia that was ready to kind of throw in the towel, and fantastic, that people stepped in. So, and I'm sure everybody but me knows the answer to this question, but what is the process for a child to say, I'm dropping out? I mean, how does that look? I mean, how do we interject into that process?
Sometimes there is a withdrawal, and we have an understanding of that child is pursuing some other interests, and sometimes they just stop coming to school, and that's our indicator that they moved on. But typically the absences from school and just the disconnection from the school is our early indicator that it is a child, but there's no formal process for students.
Is there a point in time, is there something that gets tripped that allows us to review their particular situation and see if there's a way for them to take one more class and graduate, or if they're, to your example earlier, that they're already qualified to graduate?
Yes, there are conferences with counselors and the administrators, just that school-based relationship, oftentimes knowing the students and knowing those warning signs that they may be a potential to drop out or give up on school. Those are the early warning indicators. So it just comes down to knowing our students, and our administrators do a phenomenal job of that, making those connections, making those relationships, checking in with students on a continual basis, monitoring the attendance reports to see where those patterns of absenteeism are appearing.
And a lot of times too, when it's picked up like that, if we can get our arms around it, they'll go through, of course, the teachers and the counselor, the administration. Some of us have even spoken with kids before that if they'll stick around long enough for us to get through that. I mean, I've spent time with students and families myself that, sometimes one of the big heartbreaking things I learned several years ago was a lot of times it's the parents. I mean, I'll never forget 6 or 7 years ago, right at the tail end of the recession, having a student and his dad in my office, and he was, the student really didn't want to drop out, but dad needed him to go to work. And that was, the conversation. He, well, I can have him making this. And I said, but that's not going to carry him through, so it was didn't win that one. When we get the notifications and we can get to them, there's a lot of support there. But like Dr. Moten said, sometimes they just stop showing up. This kid, he really wanted to, I think, and so he reached out, and we were able to catch that and find a way for him to do it. But he had to go to work over the COVID break, and so that's why he had not been in school for a little while. Then it got, as I understand it, it went so long that he finally just said, well, I'm gonna have to drop out. And he said, well, wait a minute, let us check it out. So it's, I wish there was a trigger, but 10 days usually is kind of when we look at them and see if we need to drop or not. And then we call and try to find them, and sometimes they call back, sometimes they don't.
Having that advisement, I think, really
The
is helpful.
advisors, if
That's such a big
if that
deal.
relationship is good with the teacher advisors, that's usually the closest piece, because like you said, counselors have a couple hundred kids to keep up with. And the teachers in the homerooms and the advisement have 20 or 30. And so
And they
it's a
keep
lot
them,
easier.
from what I understand, throughout the
Yeah.
entire journey, which is really helpful.
Well, the solution to this is to make sure that these kids are all back in classrooms and not virtually learning. We had 1,700 court mandated reporters who weren't able to see children during this when we were doing distance learning. So you had people who couldn't see if children were malnourished or if they had been abused or whatever. So there's a reason we have these buildings, and these kids need to be in it. And that's all I'll say about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And the next item coming from the Charter Foundation is our 5-year evaluation. And we will soon have a conversation regarding the district's progress on the innovation with our contract. We are under a 10-year contract at this time. And when we have that conversation, part of that will be regarding our commitment to increasing student achievement, implementing essential features of the charter system contract, and implementing and training our local school governance teams. On the next slide, you can see those essential features to which we committed in our charter contract. There are 6 of those, and we will take a look very quickly at our progress with some of those. Dr. Thompson and Mrs. Persinger will share student achievement data fairly soon. They've been hard at work working with MAP and working with our principals and looking at that information to determine what progress our students have been able to make and what the impact of COVID has had on student learning. So they have been working diligently, and they have put together some very useful information that we'll take a look at very soon. But looking at the other features, the first one that you see listed there is implementing the teacher leader program. We successfully have a teacher leader program, and I included an example there of a checklist that Caroline Buckey did in working with the teacher leaders. She revised that work that teachers had to do to be part of the teacher leader program so that it has some meaningful indicators for teachers studying lessons together, uploading videos, and really working to earn that credential. On the next slide, another feature of the charter system contract, part of our innovation, is we agreed to utilize funds to employ a cultural diversity specialist. And we were able to accomplish that. Scott King worked in that role. So we were able to accomplish that part of our contract as well. On the next slide, developing pathways, and you see several listed there, and I put in bold type computer science. That is an area where we have made some progress. We still have a ways to go, but I'm very pleased to state that we were able to use the $25,000 grant that we received recently to focus on professional learning. We've had some teachers get computer science endorsement. We've been able to expand the number of courses that we're able to offer to students, and dual enrollment is part of that CTAE programming that we're offering to students, and to get not only more teachers certified, but to get more students involved in computer science. On the next slide, working with our special education students and giving them some options for programming. You can see there from the website, the program for students that we've highlighted. There's the Youth Employment Services Program, Student Transition, and Project Search. So we have successfully made progress in offering a transition program for our special education students. On the next slide, offering incentives, some financial and then some just professional learning incentives for teachers who are interested in enhancing their skills in the area of technology. There's an opportunity for an online teaching endorsement, and then we also have the badging program in place. But at this time, all of our teachers have been more involved with technology and implementing some of those strategies in the classrooms. The next one addresses having pathway offerings for students at middle schools and better alignment there. And we do offer math at the math course at the middle school, a science course, and then some CTAE courses for high school credit. So our middle school students, we've done a better job with aligning connections and having those students earn that credit and be ahead once they enter high school. And then the last slide there is the school governance teams. We've done an exceptional job with having school governance teams in place in each one of our schools. There's an example there of Statham and Heyman Morris's website with school governance. We hold to the commitment to have those meetings on a monthly basis to solicit input from those governance team members and to involve them in decision-making across the district. So on March 19th, there will be several district staff members involved in a video interview to answer some questions and to explain our progress with our charter contract. So we are looking forward to that commitment on March 19th, and we already have some of the examples that I've shared with you. As I said, Dr. Thompson and Mrs. Persinger are working on the student achievement piece of that, so we'll have some data compiled there, and then we have evidence of the high functioning school governance teams that we have in place. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great report, Dr. Moden. Thanks for responding to all our questions.
Absolutely, no problem.
Ms. Bates, anything?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to new business. John Sinclair on the screen.
Should be.
Here.
Hello.
All right. Thank you. The new wing under construction at Westside Middle School is ready for data cabling and network infrastructure. An RFP was posted and 7 vendors responded, as you see below. The low bid respondent, Tech Optics of Winder, met the terms of the RFP. They have done similar business with the district previously, and they are not adversely listed in the SAM.gov database. Now, because of the continued transition to a much heavier reliance on wireless versus wired connectivity, we have drastically reduced the number of data drops being installed in this building, and that's a model we're going to expect to follow going forward with new construction. However, since this is the first project where we have done that significantly at this reduced level, in addition to the normal extra allowance for moves, adds, and changes that we typically do for any project, We're also asking for a little bigger allowance this time to cover any areas that end up needing more data cabling than we originally estimated. So the financial impact is $23,361.89 for the bid response and $7,500 extra allowance for any MUSAD changes for a total of $30,861.89 from splashed construction funds. The superintendent recommends authorizing the award of the West Side structured cabling bid to low bid respondent Tech Optics of Winder, Georgia, in that amount, plus the authorization of an additional $7,500 for a total authorization of $30,861.89.
Any questions, concerns? Consent agenda?
That'd be fine. John, I got a question for you. These last two bids,
Yes, sir.
two highest bids on it, what, you got any idea what they were looking at that was different than what you, the RFP you put out?
So the integrated office solutions, I think they just were on the high side, and there's a thing out there where sometimes vendors will just throw things against the wall and hope that they get one that sticks. So I'm going to assume that that's what that was. I do not know what TW Professional Solutions was intending with their bid response. I assume they've made some error in judgment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Thompson?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to bring before you the proposed student code of conduct for the school year 2021-2022. Every year, we have to undergo a review of the student code of conduct by law. That's required in Georgia law. And we also know it's important to have code of conduct reviewed to make sure that we are giving proper expectations for our students and families, as well as making sure it meets our administrators' needs to be able to keep our schools safe and orderly. As Dr. Moten mentioned, we have great school governance teams, and during January, we had each one of our school governance teams review the code of conduct from this current year to see if they had any additions, deletions, suggestions. They looked at those. We came back and they had no feedback for changes. Sometimes also the state of Georgia will, the Department of Education or the legislature will make some tweak to something that we have to reflect. You recall last year we changed some things with electronic cigarettes and violence against teachers. There were nothing coming from the legislature or the Department of Education. So I think for only the second time since I have been doing the code of conduct, I am bringing forth the same code of conduct and recommending that we continue with the current code of conduct that seems to be meeting everyone's needs, and there were no recommended changes. So that has to sit on the table for 30 days, and I will be happy to answer any questions you guys have about it.
Any questions?
Not, thank you all very much.
Before you leave, I don't think we went over the student enrollment.
Yes, sir.
Anything on there that poses any concerns for you on our enrollment data?
We're definitely still, when you look at where, Suzanne, I don't know if you can pull that up. If you look at where you'll notice if you go to page 2 of that, if you'll keep scrolling down, Suzanne, you can see we've had a pretty steady increase as the year has gone on. But if you look at where we are now relative to the 100th day of school last year, we are down about 1%, 1.5%. And traditionally, over the last 5-6 years, we had been growing by about 1 to 2% each year. So when you put those together, we are probably about 3% lower than what our expectations would have been under a normal year. I can tell you that is pretty consistent with what most districts in Georgia are experiencing. When we've done the analysis, a lot of this appears to be kindergarten and first grade parents in whom their kids are below the age of compulsory attendance choosing to hold them back a year and to start them later. Sometimes maybe we've had an increase in parents seeking to homeschool, probably less general mobility of families just moving around. So it's still a little too early to look at trends. It's definitely increased as the year's gone on, which is good, but it'll probably be a little while longer before we know the true impact.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the enrollment report?
How are, not about the report itself, but I would like an update at some point on how we are tracking these children that we've lost since last year, since March of last year.
Mhm.
I know there's been at least a 1% or more decline where it's my understanding that we have no idea what happened. They
Mhm.
just disappeared.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes.
we
and
need to be finding out where those kids are.
Absolutely. And I know that part of our enrollment decrease are kids who just didn't enroll that would have enrolled otherwise. We've seen big decreases in kindergarten, like I mentioned, kindergarten and first grade, but you're 100% correct. There are students in Barrow and everywhere, but they're Barrow students, so we care about them primarily, that we don't know what's going to come of them. And that's a challenge, and that's something we can certainly present to you what we've been working on with that.
Okay, thank you.
I know I have several people that I've talked to that decided early on to homeschool.
Yeah.
And we may or may not have that information.
Mhm. Yeah, and we have seen a very large increase in the number of parents homeschooling. The question would be whether or not that's a sort of 1-year blip where they're waiting for COVID to calm down and then they would just enroll them next year, or whether that may be a more permanent solution to them. Some of them may have themselves been laid off or working from home, and so it's convenient to do that. It may not be convenient at a certain point. We may see an enrollment increase. So I think time will tell on that.
But even with those that are being homeschooled, we still have to know who those people are, right?
Yes, ma'am. By law, we have to, anytime a student withdraws to homeschool, we have 30 days to verify that they have enrolled with the state. And if they've not done that, then we are required to do a DFACS referral.
Right.
So what we have seen, though, is an increase in the number of parents actually. I think, just to give you an example, I'm going off memory here, so I'm not going to give you precise numbers, but previous summer, we had approximately 30 students that withdrew to go homeschool over the summer, not for the whole year, but just from the end of one school year to the next. Over this summer, it was close to 130. So that's about a 4-time increase, and there's been more since then. So that is going to be a trend to keep an eye on, but we do know that those students, at least their parents have signed up with the state as a homeschooler. We don't really have much ability to do beyond that, but we are legally required to track that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all very much.
Okay, so we'll post the code of conduct and revisit that. Mr. Furno, back again.
Okay, we've been talking about renovations and modifications to Auburn and Wholesome Beck Elementary for quite a while now. Last summer, we made an application to the state for capital outlay dollars. You all last summer also approved our architect for the project. And at the end of last year, approved our construction manager, Grail Construction. And at this time, this is sort of the last piece before we take off here. We are recommending a guaranteed maximum price of $1,750,000 for the summer 2021 renovations and modifications at Auburn Elementary School. This is going to involve this sort of standard building refresh that we've been doing, which is paint, ceilings, floors, lights. We're also going to be doing some work on the HVAC controls, intercom, getting the front vestibule better secured. We've been doing that at each renovation as we've gone along. Also, a little bit of change up front there with the clinic and admin space, particularly in the midst of COVID. We're looking at those things a little bit differently and making some improvements there. And at Auburn, we've got some drainage items we want to address there at the playground as well. So this is funded from SPLOST 6 as well as capital outlay dollars. And again, our recommendation is a guaranteed maximum price of $1,750,000.
Any questions? Consent agenda?
Okay, for Wholesome Beck, it's really the same story, just different school. So the scope of work is essentially the same. There's a couple nuanced differences there, but the major one being working on a play court there on the exterior of the building. But aside from that, the same type of scope And so our recommendation there is also accepting a guaranteed maximum price of $1,750,000 for the summer 2021 renovations and modifications at Wholesome Beck Elementary.
Joe, is that gonna be a major renovation on the front of that school to get it safe, for lack of a better term?
In terms of the interior?
Yes.
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, we beat that around pretty good, and God bless Kendall. He sat in some meetings over there, and they really, staff really thought deeply about how to move people around and how to keep people safe coming in there. So I feel like, it's pretty straightforward there.
Okay.
And same thing at Auburn, really.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Anything else? Consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay, our final recommendation tonight is for a guaranteed maximum price of $500,000. This is for renovations and modifications at our Center for Innovative Teaching. SPLOS 6 is the sole source of funds for this project. This building is not part of our state inventory, so because we run a program there, and so this is entirely SPLOS funded. The scope of work there, again, is similar in terms of paint, lights, flooring, and then just some smaller scale type stuff on the inside and outside of the building. Really just trying to address some, not replacing the whole HVAC system or the whole electrical system, but trying to pinpoint where our needs are and address those things there. If we get into a situation where we've got to do something bigger, we'll come back to you. But we feel like this will help improve the building and carry us forward a little bit further.
Any questions about CFIT? Consent agenda? Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Ms. Beggs?
Good evening. It is my pleasure to bring these two items to you tonight. Every year we go through a salary review that is typically a cycle of the classified employees to make sure that we're looking at everyone at least every 3 years. So it's a 3-year cycle. We look at them in groups, and then we also make sure that every individual has had their specific position looked at. In addition, we look at our teacher salary local supplements, and all of these salaries are reviewed in comparison to the state, to our size district, to our RESA, to our neighboring counties, so that we get a really good idea of what other counties are doing that might compete with us. And so in looking at our teacher supplements, we actually started this process last year and we're not able, due to COVID, to be able to bring anything forward. But we would like to recommend a $1,000 increase across the board in our local teacher supplement. So currently, an entry-level teacher with a T4 first year is going to have a supplement of $2,500. That would go up to $3,500. A T7 doctorate caps out at $4,000, so that would cap out at $5,000. So it's across the board at every level.
So this schedule you have here posted, everything would.
Everything will go up.
This is without that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
What is posted is the current year. So any questions about that or that process
So this would go into effect in July?
for next year? Yes, ma'am.
Any other concerns?
So how are we gonna pay for it? Where's it
So-
coming from?
Ms. Houston has worked her magic, and not that she's found the money, but we have looked at it, and I put the cost on there. We calculated the salaries that would be affected that first year, including the Social Security and teacher retirement, and it is 1.5 million in cost that would be absorbed locally.
Well, I personally think that this is overdue. We've been talking about this for several years,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
we need to do this. And since I didn't hear Ms. Houston over there going, we can't do this, I'm just depending on her to make sure that we got this covered, right? Okay.
Next.
Okay, Ms. Houston, as a matter of politics, we don't go back on this. Okay, so you need to make sure.
They've done a great job, staff. Everyone's done a fantastic job working this out. and Putting it forward to make sure we can
Okay.
cover it. And I'm thrilled for us to be able to bring this forward, especially at this time.
I just wish we could do more.
Yeah,
Always do, but always do. But they definitely deserve that and more for sure.
amen.
But this will be a good start, and hopefully things will stay in improvement mode, and we can keep moving forward with it.
Well, if it doesn't work out, then we know Joe's budget will be the one that gets cut to cover it. Because that's what always happens.
Consent agenda?
Sure.
And the other item I'd like to bring forward, when we did the salary review in 2016 and kind of did an overhaul, we capped the number of steps for our classified employees at 18. However, the state teacher salary schedule and our teacher salary schedule goes to step 22. So we are recommending that we increase the classified steps up to 22 as well. And I have listed the cost associated with that. It's $397,868 approximately that would come from the general fund. There is an additional $25,000 for school nutrition that would come out of school nutrition funds. So we just feel like that is the right thing to do for our classified staff and have the same number of steps.
Another one that's probably a little overdue, but we were able to make it work.
Any questions about that?
And if you factor in the cost of turnover,
Yeah.
it might be.
We're still with it. And they earn it. I mean, they definitely do.
Consent agenda?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is Dr. Simpson online?
Yeah, I'm gonna
You're gonna fill it up.
finish it tonight.
All right, this first one is for Bassa Furniture. Back in March, you approved $667,437.94 for furniture out at Bassa. Once we got in there and started putting the furniture in, we realized that we need 10 additional teacher workstations and 30 additional student chairs. So we are asking for $13,924.93 to be paid out of East Bloss funds to fill up these classrooms. And the reason why we have to come back to you for $13,000 is the original was $667,000. So it was over the $25,000 threshold.
I was looking forward to asking Dale if anybody was sitting on the floor, but she's not here.
They're dancing. They have, the dance class.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question because I didn't see this and maybe I just missed it when I was going over the agenda, but who are we purchasing these from?
It is Georgia Specialties Equipment, and that's who we got the original
Okay.
furniture from. And we really just went with that one company because all the furniture flowed together. It's
Okay.
all the same type and colors.
Consent agenda.
All right, for the next one, we're looking at Wholesome Beck Elementary School. This summer, the superintendent recommends accepting the highlighted price per line item on the attached bid tabulation sheets to refresh classroom furniture at Wholesome Beck Elementary School during the renovations over the summer. Total cost will be approximately $130,902.40. And we are also asking for a contingency of 10% for adjustments in the quantity and permission to go to the next lowest bid if timeliness of delivery becomes an issue. So with 4,000 to 5,000 new starter homes or apartments coming into Bear County in the next few years, we can see the fluctuations that may happen. Also, since some have went home with COVID, they might be coming back next year. So we want to have a little bit of that contingency in there so that if we need more student desk and teacher desk, that we can buy those without having to come back to the board. So this would be $130,902.40 out of ELOS, with an additional $13,100 for any sort of changes in quantity or if delivery is delayed for a certain item.
Any questions? We're good. Consent agenda.
All right, the next one is Appalachia High School, the same type of thing. The superintendent recommends accepting the highlighted price per line item on the attached bid tabulation sheets to refresh classroom furniture at Appalachia High School during the renovations over the summer. The total cost will be $427,153.12, with a contingency of $20,000 for adjustments to quantity and permission to go to the lowest bid, the next lowest bid, if product standards or timeliness of delivery becomes an issue. This will also be paid out of ELOS funds. Any questions on this one?
When we order the furniture though, with this quantity, I would think we would penalize them if they can't deliver. I mean, do we have any leverage with that?
We can definitely go to the next lowest bidder, which if y'all give me permission to do that, if they can't make it in time. But yeah, we rarely have any problems with this quantity number of furniture. Yeah.
Consent agenda.
All right, next one, similar. If you guys approve Auburn Elementary School for renovations this summer, we will need to replace some of their aging furniture out. We, of course, are going by the highlighted price per line item on the attached bid tabulation sheet, asking for $157,612 with a contingency of 10% for adjustments in the quantity and permission to go to the next lowest bidder if timeliness of delivery becomes an issue, and this will be paid out of ELOS funds.
Is there a reason that do they not need as much as Wholesome Beck?
That is true. Their quantities are less than Wholesome Beck's. When we went with the principal gave us the numbers. Now that will change because of all the growth over there, but for right now, their numbers were, the numbers they requested was less than Wholesome Beck's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Consent agenda.
Okay. All right, the next item, policy DO is our school properties disposal procedures. So we have to get consent from the board to surplus some of our items that originally cost over $10,000. And all of these buses and vehicles, most of them cost over $10,000. So we are getting your consent to surplus them. And what we'll do first is we put them out on Gov Deals, and that gives everybody an opportunity to bid on the items. If they don't sell on there, then the scrap yards will come in and buy them from us. Last year, you guys surplused 13 vehicles, and we made $7,746 off of those 13 vehicles.
I think we should probably note that the average mileage on these vehicles is how much? Like a bazillion? It's been my experience that
that's the experience, but there was no mileage noted on the surplus sheet.
Well,
and
we've
I
got
asked
like,
Jason to be here, but he might not have been able to dial in.
we've got a 97 Ford on there, a 2000 Dodge. You know, obviously, we're maintaining these vehicles well, but at some point, they just have to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1997.
1980.
1988.
Good, all right. My point is
Jason,
that
do you
if-
have anything to add?
No, basically they're in the graveyard out back. None of these vehicles no reasonable person would make any attempt to get them running again or anything like that. Bazillion miles is probably a conservative estimate on these vehicles.
Thank you, Jason.
Jason, this is Ricky Bailey. If they can't buy them, do they have to drag them off? If they can't drive them?
Yes, actually, if we have to scrap them, the scrap company has a wrecker. They'll come pick them up. There's no cost for us if a wrecker has to come tow them for scrap, or if they don't run, they'll come tow them out. We have no cost for that for us.
I guess my
The Winder Speedway.
Right. I guess my point was that $7,000 for 13 vehicles doesn't sound like a lot of money until you realize that we have just driven them to death.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Better than sitting there rotting.
All right, consent agenda?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. There's some legislative positions.
Yeah, I'll go for you. You got your slate. It's that time of year again, the GSBA legislative positions. You see that one of the most important responsibilities that GSBA takes on is to collective resolve of all the local boards. So we've got, they've provided us with those. We posted them for you all to take a look at. And if you're in agreement, we'll get you to vote on those. If you have any changes, we can talk about those at the board meeting that you want to make. That's something we hit about this time every year. And then the next piece of that is the number 14 is the delegate and alternative appointments for the summer assembly GSBA meeting down hopefully in Savannah. If they're planning it, then fingers crossed to be as normal, but of course, COVID can let that happen or not as we go forward. But so we will want to have you all nominate a delegate and an alternative in case that delegate can't be there to make the votes for the board.
Any questions about either of those? We can nominate at the next meeting.
We can nominate that, and then we have any changes, or we can go over those on the legislative positions, or as pretty normal, they usually set them as they're posted. So those two things are there. If you have any questions, just call myself or Suzanne, and we can walk you through those pieces while you're looking over it over the next week.
Okay. Authorization for committees, Teacher of the Year, Vince, Beverly, and then you should have gotten an invite. Any questions about that? We should be good to go for that. Hopefully we can do it this year and do a good job virtually. Buildings and grounds, compensation, school lunch. I don't think there's anything to report. That said, we'll go into executive session. Ricky?
You want to read this?
Oh, yeah. We're going to discuss or deliberate upon the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action or dismissal, or periodic evaluation or rating of a public officer or employee, or to interview applicants for the position of superintendent. Ricky?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.